Central Pennsylvania is home to some of the most beautiful farmlands in the world. The stunning combination of mountains cradling rolling hills filled with corn, alfalfa, soy, and wheat can make for quite the visual. However, you may not have realized that over the years, something here had gone horribly wrong. And that something, as small as it is, plays a huge role in the farmland ecosystem. The American Kestrel is the smallest falcon in North America, and although there hasn't been enough research yet to pinpoint a singular cause for their declining numbers, scientists theorize that this decline is due to factors like increased pesticide usage, loss of secondary cavity habitat, loss of fence rows, and predation from larger birds. In fact, kestrels have experienced a 93% decrease in numbers in the mid-Atlantic United States, all within a 50-year span. Secondary cavity nesters like American Kestrels use pre-existing cavities and cavities made by other birds like woodpeckers for nesting. So, between the pesticide problem, the fact that they're the size of a blue jay, and the constant depletion of their habitat, American Kestrels need our help. Which is why at Shavers Creek Environmental Center, they seem to have cracked the code in bringing back both increasing numbers of American Kestrels and barn owls to the farmlands of Pennsylvania. They did this by starting the Shavers Creek Farmland Raptor project, working with farmers in central Pennsylvania, and leading the program. John Kaufman helps to make, install, and maintain nest boxes for both American Kestrels and barn owls. But let's focus on the Kestrels for now.
Well, the Kestrels were struggling population-wise, and since they are secondary cavity nesters, those types of birds are always in need of housing. So they're on Zillow quite a bit, I guess you'd say. And so providing them all their needs to be met, fighting the starlings, fighting other things that use secondary cavities too, mammals, squirrels, bluebirds, woodpeckers. How can we help that? And the design the fellow brought, and the idea and the kind of methods kind of created this separation from trees and all the things that create those competition. So having the boxes out on the pole and the tree line kind of assists with that success in the box. And they just love these hillsides. They can just see predators such as Cooper's hawks and other things like myself visiting, So I found that these kinds of hillsides and perching opportunities are more successful than other sites. Yeah, so I have a camera on that little loop there, and it's gonna show me that she's in there right now. You can see, but there's some babies back there. See the little white fuzzes right there. So they're like maybe a couple days old. She's got an egg or two. She got 2 eggs and a little head there coming. So these are just hatching. So they're probably hatching today or started hatching last night. So we still got 2 eggs in there. So either they might not hatch or they're just going to be slow to hatch a little bit. Occasionally they lay 4, well, oftentimes they lay 5 eggs, and occasionally 1 or 2 eggs don't make it, which is typical sometimes, especially in a kind of weird spring where it's cold out and things like that. But for the most part, they generally do hatch successfully, at least 4 of them.
After the chicks hatch, mom and dad are on full guard and feeding duty. With the territory spanning anywhere from 100 to almost 800 acres, they are masters of the sky and even have tools like kiting in their arsenal for scouting prey. Raising their young is a constant shared duty. Typically, the female will be on lookout on a nearby perch outside the nest while the male hunts. The male will pass food off to the female, who will then go into the nest and pick apart the meal for the chicks to eat. However, if there are any threats in the area, they will usually use a designated nearby branch or hollow cavity for food storage until the threat passes. Being a smaller bird, kestrels are on the menu for bigger birds like Cooper's hawks and redtails. However, on a daily basis, kestrels use something to their advantage that most of their predators don't use: teamwork. With a combination of alarm calls, swoops, and dive bombs, a pair of American Kestrels can fend off predators much larger than they are. And while this is life or death for both them and their chicks, they have to do this multiple times a day to ensure that their territory isn't invaded or taken over. "20 days after the eggs hatch, it's already time for them to be banded. This process acts as a way to educate people on the species as well as track the birds. The band acts as a form of identification for that specific bird. This way, if a bird ever shows up and is photographed or is found deceased somewhere, that bird will already be in the system, which they can then make inferences on how the bird died, how far it traveled, and more.
So today we have some nestlings in there. They're hopefully about 20 days old. If they're a little older, they're gonna be a little bit more feistier, which fun for you, but not for me. And we'll all get a chance to hold these kestrels in our hands and take a group photo. If they're a little younger, they're gonna be a little bit fuzzier and a little bit more like, eh. So, and that's really fun too, but they're a little manageable. But it's really nice to see some of the plumage color in here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get out I'm gonna take some measurements with them, put some bands on them, and then we'll kind of turn it over to you to kind of see what it feels like to hold a kestrel. So you can see the story of the box. Lots of activity going in and out, the claws and talons of the kestrel grabbing the box there. I don't know how old they are, so I'm gonna put this in here just in case they try to hop out. Oh, aren't they cute? Let's see, we only got 3 today. It's the first time they've seen some people. Oh, and looks like we got a meal here. Disrupting the meal, which has a nice full crop. Looks like a bird. Eating, looks like maybe a house sparrow, possibly. Tipped 2 eggs, so 2 eggs did not hatch. Unfortunate. They're pretty cold feeling right now, so they will not hatch. So she laid a clutch of 5, which is typical for kestrels, but there could be disruption in their nesting period where they don't hatch, or they could just not be fertile. So, yeah, I'll put them back in. Don't really necessarily need them. When the eggs are born or laid, it's 1 a day. And so when I see 1 egg, I can determine when the hatching is going to be based on that. And so the female does most of the incubation. She sits there all night long in the box. And this is what I know through video footage of a camera in a nest box. The male comes in once in a while, gives her a break, about 5 to 10 minutes. And then she does most of the work. Once they hatch, she's mainly coming in and feeding and tearing apart the food for the young. So the male's role is then to provide the food. Occasionally he'll bring in, but he'll just drop it in and like, I gotta keep hunting. So the female does a lot of the work then inside the box once they hatch. But for the most part, the female is there throughout the whole night. Band on the leg, on the left leg always.
After banding, taking multiple measurements, determining their age,
But we're looking at a 19-day-old chick here.
and letting people handle the birds. In just 14 days, these chicks will be fledging from the nest. But until then, Mom and Dad continue to be hard at work. During the days leading up to fledging, the adult male is now more active, taking food directly to the nest instead of passing it off. Probably due to the nestlings being strong enough to pick it apart for themselves now. Throughout the next few days, Mom and Dad were relentless in bringing everything they could find to the nest. From mice, to grasshoppers, to worms, to other baby birds. With the energy from these feedings, the nestlings then get in some exercise, stretching out and flapping their wings, preening their feathers, and playing King of the Hill with their siblings to see who gets access to the feeding hole. Day after day, they get stronger, holding themselves up, Their scanning skills become smoother and more stable, and their confidence gets to a point where they're nearly falling out of the nest begging for food. Until that fateful day that either their courage or curiosity takes them over and they make their first leap into the world. For the next 6 to 8 hours, he'll be in the tall grass learning how to fly and picking up worms and insects along the way. His siblings, being a day younger, will more than likely follow him within the next 24 hours. Over the next 5 to 7 days, they will continue to come back to the nest box for shelter at night, and during this time, Mom and Dad's work still isn't done, as they continue to bring food to the fledglings until after about a week, when they'll go off alone, scoping out territory for themselves. With one half of the Shavers Creek Farmland Raptor project being on kestrels, let's now shift our focus to the other half of the project. And while this species plays the same ecological role as the American kestrel, it is one of the most ancient species of birds we have living today, once seen as a bad omen to all that heard their blood-curdling screech. Barn owls, also known as ghost owls, sit in a completely different family than any other owl in the world. One of the main differences is their tolerance for man and man-made structures. However, they are pretty sensitive as far as their needs go, making barn owl boxes the perfect initiative for the Shavers Creek Farmland Raptor project. Helping with the banding of this specific box is Clay Lutz, a regional recovery biologist with the Pennsylvania State Game Commission.
They're a global species. They're kind of a conservation conundrum for us because we're at the very northern part of their range. They're declining in Pennsylvania. They're a species of conservation concern, but they're a global species, and part of their range they're doing just fine. In fact, they're thriving. If you go to a California vineyard, they'll have boxes all through their vineyards because they're good rodent control, and there's lots of barn owls. So this one's just starting to get its adult feathers. I'd put it probably at about 5.5 weeks after hatching. You know, that's just a rough guess, plus or minus, a week. They usually fledge right around 8 weeks, so it happens really fast. They develop really, really quickly. And then the really hard stage is to learn how to fly, learn how to hunt on their own. And they'll hunt as a family group the first couple of weeks after fledging, and probably into early fall, and then they'll start to break up. And if there's still enough resources, the parents may try to do a second clutch and do another nest full of babies. Barn owls are short-lived. Most of our other owls are quite long-lived, so they could live 20, 25 years. Barn owl, a 5-year-old barn owl in the wild is very old.
Barn owls are some of the most effective hunters in the avian world. In fact, a family of barn owls can eat up to 4,000 rodents per year. This is an obvious plus for farmers, but pest control aside, why as a farmer would you want to be a part of the Shavers Creek Farmland Raptor project and either have a kestrel or a barn owl box set up on your property? Well, I decided to go to the source itself and speak to a farmer involved in the Shavers Creek Farmland Raptor project.
One thing I like to remember is that we are a part of the ecosystem. It's not like we're stewards of the ecosystem. We're actually a part of it. And so as the health of the ecosystem goes, that's how our health goes. And so the way nature does it is that it's incredibly diverse. You have multiple species of prey and predator animals. And I think the more diversity you can get in your land, the better. I mean, maybe we ought to talk a little bit about beauty as well. If you were put in a landscape that was ugly as all get out, like just a flat out desert with nothing growing, like I'm guessing you get depressed before too long. And when you have a beautiful landscape, when you notice trees, when you notice birds, insects, all of the intricacies of nature. That's why I like farming. That's why I like to do owl boxes and anything I can for wildlife. It's just the simple fact of beauty and nature and experiencing that.